Welcome back, my bookish darlings. I am a huge fan of the Sandman comic books and was delighted with the Netflix series, which you may know if you've seen my review, which I'll post right up here. Who am I? I am the booktube goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube. And what better time to have a Sandman book tag? Morpheus, aka the Sandman, is a member of the Endless, which are personifications of universal forces. They are presented as a very dysfunctional family, and you just get a taste of them in the Netflix series. But I think they will also make great prompts for a book tag. Does anyone do book tags anymore? Well, let's get on with it. The eldest of the Endless is Destiny, and he pops up in other DC comics. He is a cowled figure who holds the Book of Destiny, which contains everything that was, is, and will be. So that includes the lives of everyone who has lived, is living, or will live, which means he has your story in his book as well. So the prompt is, what book or character do you think reflects your own life? Well, as a gay man of a certain age who lived in San Francisco, I'm going to go with Michael Tolliver. The character created by Armistead Maupin in his Tales from the City series. The character of Michael Tolliver first appeared in Tales of the City back in 1978. And the book with Michael Tolliver's name on it is Michael Tolliver Lives, which was published in 2007 and picks up when Michael is a little more mature. That book deals with aging as a gay man and looks back on how San Francisco has changed through Michael Tolliver's life, aka Armistead Maupin, over a 30 or 40 decade period. And how Michael Tolliver is now surrounded by a very eclectic and unusual group of friends. Now, Michael Tolliver has always resonated to me, as I know he does many gay men, especially those who live in San Francisco. And I first moved there around 1989, and I've just left a couple years ago. And looking back and seeing the changes through the decades, it's really almost traumatic. When you think back of how something was and how something has changed so dramatically. But I love the series and you should check it out. And of course it has been created into a BBC, Netflix series. The next Endless is Death. Yes, I said Death. Death here is a young punk woman wearing an ankh and having the Eye of Horus tattooed on her eye. Now, I don't think the Netflix version had the Eye of Horus tattoo, which I don't know why, but she should have had it. Picturing Death as a young punk woman was a huge departure from the Grim Reaper personification we normally see, especially at the time Sandman was published in 1989. Which brings us to the death prompt. What book has presented death or dying in a way that was unexpected to you? Maybe even changed how you viewed death. We got pretty real in the Destiny prompt, so I'm going to go lighter and say Mort by Terry Pratchett. Death here is a Grim Reaper, but it's a Grim Reaper filled with ennui. And he takes on an apprentice named Mort, so Death can experience what it is like to be human by going on a holiday and getting drunk and whatever. If you haven't read any Terry Pratchett, you probably think his novels are just humorous, silly romps, which they are, but there's always this deeper metaphysical layer which elevates his novels, in my opinion, to pure genius. Of course, Dream, or Sandman himself, is the third of the endless. He oversees both dreams and nightmares. So the prompt is, what book is like a dream or a nightmare? I'm going to go with Clive Barker's Weave World, my second favorite Clive Barker novel, the first being Magica. But Weave World has the richest villains, including the most evil female Lovecraftian triumvirate ever. The Immaculata, who is the Virgin and an absolutely evil sorceress. The Magdalene, who gives birth to monsters, and the Hag, who reads the future in the afterbirth produced by the Magdalene. The Weave World itself is basically a tapestry that is a portal to another dimension. This is Clive Barker at his most best. Fanciful, horrific, beautiful, gory, wondrous, disturbing, and there's probably a ton of trigger warnings that I can list, so go look that up for yourself if that's an issue for you. But if you do pick it up, brace yourself. The fourth of the endless is hidden in the Netflix series, so we'll keep it that way because that's also how they were introduced in the comic book. They only had a nickname, which was the Prodigal.
I have news. The Prodigal has returned.
No, he's still missing.
So what does it mean to call someone a prodigal? It can refer to the biblical story of the prodigal son, and there's also a Buddhist allegory of the prodigal son, but in literature, it usually basically refers to a character who leaves their home, changes, and eventually returns. So let's stick with that. So the prompt is, what is your favorite book about a prodigal character? And I'll just take the easy road on this one and say The Lord of the Rings. Why? Because we start in Hobbiton, the hobbits leave and drastically change, and then they return to Hobbiton for the scouring of the Shire. Unfortunately, the scouring wasn't in the Peter Jackson movies, but it could have been its own movie. That's when the hobbits, Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, return to the Shire and find it is taken over by a gangster named Sharky. And I'm not going to spoil who Sharky is. But what I love is that when the hobbits left the Shire, they were basically country bumpkins. And they have returned through some serious character arcs into seasoned veteran adventurers. And when these new realized hobbits take care of Sharky and put things to right, it's just a marvelous moment. And frankly, it's one of my favorite parts of Lord of the Rings. The Endless, known as Desire, is a non-binary character that is pure sex or desire, or maybe even passion. So the prompt is, what is the sexiest book you've ever read? I'm going to have to say Crucial's Dart by Jacqueline Carey, the first book in the Crucial saga. It is high fantasy about Phaedra, a woman born with a red dart in her eye, which is a mark of Crucial, who is the angel of pain. Now, the society in this world is descended from angels whose motto is, love as thou wilt. And Phaedra becomes a courtesan who enjoys pain and is the ultimate companion to sadists. And she finds out there's a plot against the kingdom, and this sends her on this sort of political journey involving the royal court and brothels, and it's all pretty sexy, but most sexy is the writing itself. It is gorgeous. The prose is amazing, and the subject matter, of course, explores the boundaries of erotica. Desire's twin is Despair, who is sort of this grotesque mirror image of desire almost. And if you can think of anything depressing, well, that's probably under despair's round. So for the prompt, what is the most depressing book you've ever read? That's easy for me. I had to read Bleak House by Charles Dickens. Even the name of the book is depressing. It is about a lawsuit over a fortune, but the lawsuit goes on and on forever and ever until all the attorney's fees basically uses up the entire fortune. Man, what a depressing story. I love Dickens, and usually his stories end on an upbeat note. But not this one. The youngest endless is known as Delirium. It was once known as Delight. She represents insanity, absolute whimsy, nonsense, the absurd. So, what is the most absurd or nonsensical book you've ever read? Okay, I'll just say it. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. It is the original absurdist nonsense book, but there is a reason it has remained one of the most popular children's book of all times. The Jabberwocky, The Walrus and the Carpenter, The Cheshire Cat, The Caterpillar. So let's tag some people. We'll start with Fit to be Read, the science fiction guru. And how about Britta Bowler, the booktuber who is the most eclectic booktuber I've ever met. Also, how about Beautifully Bookish Bethany, the amazing booktuber who I recently did a reaction to. Are you up for it, Bethany? And of course, Eric of Break Even Books, the master of book tags. And we'll tag C'est Que Vie, my drag queen booktube sister. How about Sarah of Voyage Through Words, who always has interesting opinion. And let's tag Sabriel's Bell, a new booktuber I've recently discovered and you should check out. And how about the Book Eclectic? If you haven't seen our book reviews, you are missing out. And anyone else who is a fan of Sandman and book tags, please go ahead and do this tag. And if you do it, please tag me so I can add you to a playlist. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.